Hello, guys. We're back continuing with Genesis chapter 6. We ended on chapter 4. There were just a few things I wanted to go back and look at just to remind you that sons of God mean direct creation. Sons of Adam we're made in Adam's image, which is the fallen image. I want to throw out some verses. That was Matthew 3:16-17, where we see Jesus is considered a son of God. Duh, he is. And then the Okatarian I told you about, we were wanting to return to that form like what the angels gave up. 2 Corinthians 5:2-5 is what tells us that we're longing to dwell in the heavens like that. And also the Jude reference that I spoke of last time was Jude verses 6 and 7. 2 Peter 2:4-6 also touches on that. So I just thought I'd throw that out there so you had some other verses to back up or to go look at when talking about the sons of God. And it also some other scriptures. I had told you Romans 8, and that was verses 14 and 19. You also have Philippians 2:15 and 1 John 3:1-2. Just little hints about being direct creations. Okay, so let's move on. We have just talked about the Nephilim. I told you guys if you got some time to go check out Stephen Quayle as well as Tom Horn. They have some great stuff. Chuck Mesler also has some good stuff if you look up Chuck Mesler. Again, these are just some great spiritual gurus on the subject who have been able to really learn a whole lot of stuff and point out to the scriptures as to how it might pertain to things to keep our eyes open for in the end. So if we say that the end of the book, the beginning of the book reveals the end of the book, the Lord says that, then why are Nephilim important? Why can't I say that it's just Cain's line and Seth's line that gets mixed? Because there's a spiritual part that we miss. I think that we have become, in the worldly culture, especially in America, we have dismissed Satan to be nothing. And you have two. You have one where in the church, Satan gets blamed for everything. Oh, he made me do it. Look, and he did it. Nothing, no credit ever goes to God. It's just Satan, Satan, Satan. Well, you might as well just be glorifying him because that's all you're doing. And then you have the other side that's like, shh, let's not talk about him. He doesn't exist. Because if he exists, then I've got to deal with the spiritual. I've got to deal with the fact that we are a digital simulation of something bigger. How do I do that? So I think it has a lot of weight. But no matter what, if you're uncomfortable with that, you can still look at the mixing. We know that from Daniel 2. It talks about the mixing of the seed. It talks about mixing. So even in the end, we have so much of the mixing of the good and the evil mixing together back to the idea of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, right? That mixing is polluting and creating everything to be no good, lukewarm, spew out of the mouth. Not even sure what you stand for. Everything's so confusing. So, again, if you want to take that mindset, go ahead. But I'm going to keep talking about the Nephilim, the giants, this weird creation. Because I'm not sure how Seth's kids and Cain's kids, only from those two lines, if they marry, they have giants. What about from Enoch's side? Or what about Methuselah's? Or what about from Lamech's? If that's the case, their kids aren't. It's only Cain's and it's only Seth's. So let's move that aside and let's look at, we've got some fallen angels who have said, I'm going to give up my glorified form because I want them there women. And he takes them, right? Think about this. In Hosea, you have the prophet Hosea who is commanded by the Lord to take a whore, to take her as a wife. And that take is the same here that we had in 6:2, that they came and they took the wives, they took the daughters. So you've got these giants. Chapter 6, verse 4. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards, when the sons of Elohim came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men and the men of old, the men of name. Mighty because they're huge. Just a thought. There's so many things to talk about, but when you see sometimes in old ancient artwork, and you may see a pharaoh, and he's huge, and you see a little tiny peons. Yeah. Well, if we go back to Numbers 13, that's the thing that the spies that come back with the report, they say, we're like grasshoppers to them because they're so big. Not just spiritual giants. No, they were physically afraid. So here's where we see it first, and we're going to see it in other scriptures. So we have a changing of DNA with those two mixing. Now let's go to 5. And Yahweh saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. You know, when Adam ate of the fruit, there was a corruption, a physical corruption. Lost that okatarian, lost that physical light like God has. Lost that. Now we're showing that through the time, now the corruption has become spiritual. The heart is so corrupted. It's corrupting. The physical first, and then you see the spiritual. Well, and you could say the spiritual is what caused the physical. You know, it's kind of chicken and the egg, right? So the Lord sees at their heart. You know, in Jeremiah 17, I believe it's verse 9, it's off the top of my head, says that the heart is the most wicked of all things. And the Lord even says in chapter 8 at the end that, yeah, men are going to be wicked. We've polluted. But again, who's polluting? We're polluting ourselves. Even though it talks about Nephilim coming, the fallen angels coming, taking women, and giving birth to Nephilim, this mix, these giants. Even though it talks about that, it doesn't say that the Nephilim corrupted man. It says that man corrupted man. What it means is we're held responsible for how we corrupted our own hearts. There wasn't a monster on the earth that made you get corrupted. Satan didn't do it. We did it. Adam took that apple, but whatever piece of fruit it was, fig, pomegranate, whatever. He took it and he partook of it. He ate it. He did that. There wasn't a gun to his head. Same thing here. The Lord's saying the corruption of the heart is man's doing. This isn't the devil made me do it. Do you know that in Revelation 20, while Satan is locked up, okay, he's locked up for 1,000 years. Yet, at the end of that 1,000 years, when he returns, he's set free. He's set free for all the people who have corrupted their own hearts, who are waiting for a leader to rebel. He will come and be their leader, and they will gladly follow him. This is after 1,000 years of the living God ruling. Okay, well, let's look at this. We have the same thing happen here. Men are corrupting themselves. The Nephilim aren't having to do it. The fallen angels, yeah, they're presenting things, but the man has to accept it. Same thing in the end. During the millennium, same thing during the tribulation. Yeah, there's going to be corruption. But as far as the wickedness of our hearts, that has to do with our behavior, our reaction, and what we're willing to partake in. These who are partaking with the Nephilim, they did it themselves. They're not being forced. All right. So they have only continual evil on their hearts. Verse 6, and Yahweh was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. Now, I'm going to read it this way. And Yahweh was sorry that the word he made had made the man earth. I think it's in the Targum, which is kind of another, it's not a paraphrase, but it's another translation, a very older one. I think it's Aramaic. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's right. And you'll see where they have the word of God often, like in Genesis 3, when we talked about that the Lord walked, that in the Targum, it says that the word of the Lord, or the voice, the word of the Lord walked among them and spoke. I love that, because the word speaks to us. So anyway, here's a hint too, that in that word, that speaking forth, creating man, he is not like, God, what losers. I wish I'd never created him. That's not it. The word here for sorry, the word here is more like broken. He's grieved. He's more like, oh, gosh, that they've chosen such the wrong way. That's more of the grieving, right? He's not Some of you say he repented. That's the same thing of it's grievous sin for him, right? And the word for grieving that you see there means to cut, like to cut with a knife. He literally feels like he's been stabbed in the heart. It's heartbreaking what he's seeing. The only way he's going to be able to preserve man is to destroy. Listen, this has been set up from the very beginning. And by that, I mean, when he suggests that, okay, through the death of Adam, meaning he brought death upon the world by eating, that's fine. He's going to use that to now create life that's going to bring salvation. So here we have, though it grieves him to have to create death or allow death that man's already brought on, the death, sin, right? What is sin? What is death? The consequence of sin. He's going to allow it to play out, to kill, to bring death, so he can preserve those who can continue to bring redemption, who are going to be able to teach properly. That's what he's going to do. All right, let's go down to the verse. Chapter 6, verse 7. And Yahweh, again merciful one, said, I am going to wipe off man whom I have created from the face of the ground. Poor ground, it's already been cursed because of man. Both man and beast, creeping creatures, and birds of the heavens, for I am sorry that I have made them. He's even going to birds of the heaven, like everything that he created in the first, he's going to do away with and recreate a new place for them to be. Kind of like the first, right? It's going to be a recreation. Remember, if this is an example of the end, then we know that when new heaven and new earth come, he's preserving those who are going to go into the new earth and the new heavens. Here's a great example of that. And he wants those who are pure. He wants those who have held themselves accountable. He wants them who are seeking after him, who want to have a relationship with him, that are going to go into the renewed heaven and earth, right? Just like this one. All right. It says in verse 8, and Noah found favor in the eyes of Yahweh. You know, in Acts 16:31 and Romans 11:23, we see that. We see where there is favor. I mean, the Lord is taking his people. He's holding them, okay? He's preserving them. You may not think so, but he is preserving them, right? So we really see grace here. And I know it's hard to, why? He wiped out the whole earth. How do you see grace there? But he saved 8 people. He preserved 8 people so that mankind can continue. Because you notice he said that wickedness was great upon the earth, right? And everyone's hearts were inclined. That's why we need a new heart, right? We need a new heart that's not inclined to death. Let's see. I know I could keep going, and there's more even to say, and I've got to figure out what I do and don't want to mention. Another thing about the Nephilim that is thought is there's this DNA altering, we know, from a heavenly being and an earthly being having a baby. All right. If this is the case, then think about the idea of the Egyptian gods. You see Egyptian gods with heads of animals. You see all these, is it the griffin? I think that's the lion, the flying lion, like the lion and the eagle together or something like that. There's all these ancient stories of these gods. And by gods, it would be deities that they're basically half and half. Half human, half angelic. Where's that come from? You know, we consider so much of that just make-believe and stories. I'm not saying that they're all true, but what I am saying is these things tend to have a basis in reality. Wouldn't be surprised at all if there was a man with some sort of head, or some sort of goat man, or some sort of, I don't know, just all kinds of bizarre things. So Griffith, if you have people who've researched it, like, oh, we found skeletons of Griffiths. So that's possible. I bring that up because not only are the fallen angels polluting the seed of man, but they want to pollute every aspect of the Creator. Because Satan's idea isn't just to pervert man and bring man to his side to defeat and hurt the living God. It's also to destroy all of what the living God created and to recreate to make it his. The only thing that Satan can do is pervert the created. And that's what he's doing. It is suggested that the Nephilim also did a lot of DNA tampering and changing DNA of animals. Another reason why all of these have to be destroyed because of the DNA that's being sliced and RNA that's being changed, that it's creating more and more evil in these animals. So they have to all be killed. So again, that's why the Lord selects what animals come. He brings those that are not perverted, not adulterated. I bring this up because there is so much cloning and mixing of DNA and RNA being changed and so many things that you can find. It's not like, on the front cover of the news. Not at all. But you will and can find it. All these experiments. I mean, one that I remember that Tom Horn talked about years and years ago was about mice that had human ears growing on them. We have pigs, I believe, with human blood flowing through them now. There's just bizarre stuff. And again, I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, please. But if 2020 you think is weird, you know the rest of the years are going to get weird. If we know the beginning from the end, we may not be so like, that's baloney, or just completely removed from it, and we wouldn't be afraid of it. You know, I mean, this summer the Pentagon announced that, okay, aliens are real, UFOs are true, right? I think just last week, or in November, there was I think it was November, or maybe it'd been 1st of December. Anyway, just a few weeks ago, they're showing where these UFOs are in the water and coming out, and now they're saying, oh, well, yes, there was an article from some higher-ups in the Israeli military who are like, oh, yes, okay, so we have had contact with aliens. And these are things since 1947 have been rumors, and I mean, since the Roswell incident. These are things that have been said. And now finally the government's, well, yeah, so it's true. Yeah. Okay. Call everyone crazy, and then later when we need it, we'll bring it up that you're not crazy. So if you understand things that are happening here and you hear those kind of news, you don't get scared. So let's say there are aliens. Okay. Well, they're not made in God's image. They're not created according to the word like this. So what are they? I would suggest, since we're on this topic, I would suggest that when you have an angel that gives up its Okatarian, it can never return to that Okatarian. It's a done deal. There's no redemption for those forms. Therefore, they come back in a very weird form. I would suggest that your aliens, very possibly, are fallen angels that can't return. Interesting. Demonic entities also are believed to be Nephilim, who are the mixed, Raphaim, who cannot die. Their physical form dies, but their spiritual has no resting place. It's not the type that the Lord makes. It is a perverted type. Therefore, it becomes your demons. So, those are just thoughts. You can go play with that. But I bring it up because understanding what's happening in the end, in Revelation, you've got the 3 frogs coming out of the mouth. You've got all these crazy things happening. Let's just go back to look at the flood. What's happening before the flood? You've got all this perversion, all this DNA shifting, these Nephilim. And again, this isn't just the weeks before. This is years prior to the flood. And those things increased and increased until it came time of needing to reproduce, recreate the earth, the heavens and the earth. And it's going to happen again in the end. It's going to happen again. We're going to have that same section to where now Jesus returns. But it's a buildup. This didn't just start. What we're seeing in 2020 didn't just start in 2020. So it's a matter of using the evil to bring glory to God. That's exactly what's going to happen here in the flood. All right. So I think we got a whole whopping 2 verses. 3. Yeah, because we actually got to verse 8, which said, now Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. All right, we will come back and discuss the rest of that starting on verse 9. I told you 6 has got a lot of stuff to think about. All right, thank you, and thanks for joining me. Bye.